Hi, we're studying some color in my visual art classes. We're going to be doing a color pencil color wheel, blending and shading with oil pastels and chalk pastels. So enjoy it. Let's get started with the color wheel. So I have my start here with the primary colors. I'm having students make a different shape for each of the types of colors on the color wheel. So the primary, secondary, and the tertiary or intermediate. And we talked about some shading techniques. So for example, the green here, everything that all the colors that they add to the color wheel, we're playing around with light and shadow so we can all practice shading. So we're pretending there's a light source in the middle, so the tints and highlights will be towards the center and then the gradient of dark towards the outer edge. We're playing around with mixing secondary colors if students want an extra challenge. Or they can just use several different greens. So really the same techniques that work with graphite work with color pencil as far as pulling the color along. Lots of slow repeated pulls, right? So you don't get lots of hard edges. So I just started with the wash there. And then play around with adding white. Actually the white is a good blending tool. It actually makes the color more solid. Shade this form here. I'm going to add some darker green to start. And then we also talked about adding complements to add more of a shadow. So for example, I'm starting here with this darker green. I'm shading the outer edges in towards the center just by pushing firmly. Lots of small little circular motions. Right? And then, I mean, you could leave it here, but there's not a lot of depth just with the green on green. You could add black. I don't actually use black rarely at all in my paintings and for shading because you don't need to. And if you use color, you could use a dark blue or purple. If you use the complement, as you see, this yellow has several different colors and some purple mixed in. It creates more of a shadow. It actually uses our perception, how our eye perceives color, to create that sense of depth. So for example, if you add the complement, so this red on top of the green, it neutralizes the color and it actually makes it look like it's receding in space. So colors that are really intense come forward optically, just how our brain works. It looks like it comes closer, and then if you use more neutral colors, it looks like it's further back. So when you use complements for shading, even though it may seem awkward at first if you've never done it before, I'm mixing red with green, but it works with all of the colors. Mixing a little bit of its complement will neutralize it a little bit. All right. So I'm just going to demonstrate one more color here. So this is green, right? Equal amounts of blue and yellow make green, and the tertiary colors are also equal amounts of the secondary and the primary next to it. So for the lime green, just like with paint, if you start with the lighter color and just do a solid fill of the lighter color, even just using a regular green, not a lime green. Again, I'm going to play around with gradients. I'm going to push a little harder up top and then make it a little bit lighter, more yellowy towards the center. And if you get it too green and you want to bring some more yellow back in, you can just keep overlapping. Okay. And then to shade this to add some depth. Really, this is for you to experiment with the colors. So right now I'm using this dark blue purple along with the complements, you know, using red to shade this. Using a darker, cooler color can also be quite satisfying and successful in achieving some depth. I know where my edge is. Okay, I'm just gonna make a purple shadow there. All right. So in the center here, what we did was two complements blended together. So for example, this one's going to be orange, right? If you're using a sharp tool, sharp pencil, which means you have a lot of color here, you can actually block in a shade, one layer of that color pretty quickly. It just, you know, made it pretty solid. You can use white to compress, make it look more solid, brightens it up a little bit, complement for some shading, make that look more round. It's almost like a teardrop shape. It started off like a leaf, but now they're kind of turning into this like water droplet sort of form. All right. So in between your complements, you're going to play around with blending them into each other. So, for example, I'm going to do it orange to blue here. And I'm going to start with the blue and then pull it in. Your challenge is to have the tip be pure hue of orange. And then right here on the farthest side this way, be pure blue. And then in the middle, you're looking for that neutral gray. So any complementary pair will make gray, neutral gray. Actually, it's called chromatic gray, which is quite lovely. So I'm gonna start with the blue here, blend it out. Orange here, nice and bright, blend it in. Sometimes, you know, people say, oh, it looks like mud, but really, you know, it's neutral. It's not bright or intense. Depending on what kind of orange or blue, whatever, you know, kind of colors you're using, if it's not a true secondary color you're mixing, so for example, if I had more yellow in my orange here, it would turn into green here where it kind of neutralizes. And when you're mixing paint, you gotta be kind of careful, watch out for that. So I'm going to continue shading all my forms around here, gradients here. To review on color schemes, we've got, so you can see, the monochromatic would be just shades of one color and tints. So, you know, light blue, medium to darker blue. Also including, that's kind of purpley, I don't actually have any black color pencils right now out, so we'll just do that. But also adding some black for a shade to make it darker. That's monochromatic, one color plus tints and shades. Now analogous colors are right next to each other on the color wheel. So for example, yellow, orange, orange, red, orange. And then red if you wanted to do 5. I think 5 is the most you can do before it feels like all the colors on the rainbow. The nice thing with any analogous color is you can use any analogous color around the color wheel, so they can include warm colors and cool colors, or all warm or all cool, and there's lots of options, and there's so much harmony with the colors because there's all the colors exist within each other for an analogous scheme. Complementary, we've got, for example, red and green. There's also something called a split complementary. So red and green would be a complementary color. A split color scheme. A split complementary would be red. And instead of green, it would be the two tertiary colors on either side. So yellow, green, and blue, green. And you can do that for any of them. So yellow and purple would be a regular complementary scheme. A split would be red, violet, blue, violet. A double complementary scheme would be any two pairs, so orange and blue and yellow and purple. Remember, you can partner up the tertiaries for a complementary scheme. And sometimes that is more exciting and interesting than just the traditional complements. All right, next video, we're going to do some chalk pastel.